Good afternoon. It's Business 360, and my name is Blyden Kim. Looking at Business 360 as Trump considers a took-up on Chinese drugs trials. Let's begin from there. The Trump administration is weighing severe restriction on the growing flow of drugs from China, according to reports. A draft executive order being circulated to pharmaceutical firms and investors accuses China and other hostile actors of exploiting gaps in U.S. scientific and regulatory systems. Proposals include requiring the FDA to subject Chinese clinical trial data to stricter reviews at higher fees, while also boosting domestic production of medicines like antibiotics and acetaminophen, and with U.S.-made products given government purchasing preferences. A newspaper report also noted discussion about speeding up FDA reviews to let drug makers launch studies faster, echoing China's own regulatory reforms. China has emerged as a key source of biotech innovation, accounting for 32% of global out-licensing deal and value in early 2025, up from 21% in the prior 2 years. Still under foreign scene, the European Union is unlikely to impose a steep tariffs on India or China, key buyers of Russian oil, despite pressure from U.S. President Donald Trump, according to EU sources. An EU delegation, including its Russia-sanctioned chief, have visited Washington this week to discuss coordinated measures against Moscow over its invasion of Ukraine. Trump reportedly urged the bloc to levy tariff of up to 100% on India and China to weaken Russian energy revenues. While the EU has sanctioned Russian entities and listed 2 Chinese banks and an Indian refinery in its July package, officials stressed that tariffs require lengthy investigation and legal justification. The bloc has only imposed tariffs related to the war on Russian and Belarusian fertilizers and farm goods. Moreover, the EU is finalizing a trade deal with India, which it is unlikely to risk. Still looking at the context of India, India is weighing a broad support package for exporters hit by steep U.S. tariff, according to reports. The Ministry of Commerce and Industry has proposed liquidity-boosting measures, including collateral-free loans and subsidized interest rates, according to sources who requested anonymity. The cabinet may review the plan this week. Relief funding withdrawal from the $255 million earmarked in February's federal budget, originally intended to offset potential fallout from tariff threat by President Trump. At the time, India-US relations were stable, but ties have since soured, culminating in a 50% tariff hike in August, targeting Indian trade barriers and Russian oil purchases. Talks are underway to expand budget allocation, though discussions remain preliminary. In Mexico, Mexico plans to impose tariff of up to 50% on cars and other products made by China and several Asian exporters, in a move to boost our domestic industry and align more closely with U.S. protectionism, as President Claudio Sheinbaum prepares for talks on North America's free trade deal. The bill submitted with 2026 federal budget targets more than 1,400 categories of goods worth some $52 billion, including vehicles, auto parts, steel, textile, toys, appliances, and footwear. Economy Minister Marcelo Ebrard has stated that the higher tariff would apply to imports from countries without trade agreements, notably China, South Korea, and India, emphasizing that they are intended to protect the Mexican industry. These products already had a tariff. What we're going to do is increase it to the cap that were permitted by the World Trade Organization, he noted. China now, a major supplier of cars to Mexico, accounts for about a fifth of new vehicle sales in Mexico. Back home in Nigeria, as Nigerian government explains cause of national grid collapse. The national power grid collapsed on Wednesday, with the federal government blaming the incident of one of the generation companies as the Nigeria Labour Congress lambasted the government over the recurrent situation. The NLC also rejected the government's plan to inject 4 trillion naira, an equivalent of $2.7 billion, into electricity companies, saying the funds would reward failure rather than solve systemic problems. The Nigerian government has explained the cause of the national grid collapse around 11:20 a.m. on Wednesday, September 10, 2025. According to the Nigerian Independent System Operator (NISO), Wednesday's grid collapse was caused by the tripping of a generation company, resulting in a significant load drop, which cascaded to other GenCos and led to a system disturbance. NISO is responsible for the country's national grid and made this known in a statement on Wednesday, and noting that restoration of the national grid commenced immediately. It stated that an investigation has begun to determine both the immediate and root causes of the grid collapse. Still in Nigeria, looking at electricity theft in the country, as NEC is to deploy advanced technology against offenders. Electricity consumers engaging in meter bypass, electricity theft, and other illicit practices will have no hiding place with the collaboration of the Nigerian Electricity Regulation Commission (NEC) and the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission (EFCC) to apprehend offenders. The chairman of the commission, Abdullahi Ramat, made this observation while awaiting the Senate's confirmation to resume official duties. In his official X handle, he assured that he would champion the use of technology to solve major issues facing the power sector. He stated that part of his plan included developing an app available on both Android and iOS, and which will integrate the APIs of DISCOs and NISO to provide NEC with real-time visibility of payment channels and system operations. In addition, Ramat said that they would deploy a whistleblowing tool similar to the community policing software called the LoRa app. He pioneered at the local government level to empower citizens to report electricity theft, meter bypass, and illegal connections anonymously. Still in Nigeria, the federal government, in collaboration with the International Solar Alliance (ISO), has launched a $500 million distributed Renewable Energy Nigeria Fund to accelerate solar energy deployment nationwide. This was disclosed in a statement by Bolaji Tunji, media aide to the Minister of Power, Chief Adebayo Adelabu. The agreement was formalized by Adelabu and ISA Director General Ash Kana during the 7th Regional Committee meeting for Africa held in Accra, Ghana from September 2nd to 4th, 2025. According to the statement, the framework establishes a robust 3-year action plan to accelerate Nigeria's solar adoption. The $500 million DRE Nigeria Fund is designed to catalyze investment in renewable energy projects backed by stronger regulatory support from the Ministry of Power. A blacklist unruly passengers NCAA directs domestic airlines. The Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority (NCAA) has told domestic airlines to place unruly passengers on a blacklist as a deterrent to others and to protect airline staff from abuse. The Director of Public Affairs and Consumer Protection at the NCAA, Michael Achimogo, made this known in a statement issued by the authority. Achimogo explained that the directive formed a part of the wider regulatory issues discussed with airlines, including unruly passenger behavior, passenger handling protocols, unresolved refunds and compensation, the planned introduction of RFID, a bag tax, and flight monitoring technology, enforcement of in-flight phone switch-off rules, protection for cabin crew, and measures to improve passengers' overall travel experience. Airlines represented at the meeting include Arik A, Ibom A, Aero Contractors, United Nigeria, Green Africa, Max A, Rano A, value jets, APs, and overland airways. Achimago expressed concerns that many airlines were reluctant to take firm action against disruptive passengers despite repeated complaints. Still in Nigeria, the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission has announced that it secured over $400 million in pre-sale decommissioning and abandonment liabilities from recent oil asset divestment in a move to prevent Nigeria from inheriting costly environmental and financial burdens. The Chief Executive Officer of NUPRC, Benga Komolafe, disclosed this while speaking at the Nigerian Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative Companies Forum in Lagos. Represented by the Commission's Deputy Director of Human Resources, Corporate Services and Administration, Efemuna Basi, Komolafe said, the Commission drew lessons from international divestment cases, including the North Sea, where decommissioning is projected at £27 billion by 2032. The Gulf of Mexico, which has cost over $9 billion, and Canada's Alberta, where more than 97,000 inactive wells carry estimated decommissioning cost of between 30 billion Canadian dollars and 70 billion Canadian dollars. He explained that these experiences shaped NUPRC's approach to recent transactions involving NAOC and Wando Energy Resources, Equinor and Chapel Energies, Mobil Producing Nigeria Unlimited, and Saplat Energies, Shell Petroleum Development Company, and Renaissance Africa Energy, and Total Energies and Telema Energies. Meanwhile, federal government collects 600 billion naira VAT from Facebook and others. The Special Advisor on Tax Policy to the Chairman of the Tax Reforms Committee, Mr. Matthew Osenego, has revealed that Nigeria has successfully collected over 600 billion naira in value-added tax from global digital service providers such as Facebook, Amazon, and Netflix. He explained that amendment to the VAT Act had empowered the Federal Inland Revenue Service to bring non-resident companies offering services in Nigeria into tax nets. He stressed that the move aligns with global best practices and ensures Nigeria benefits from taxes on services consumed locally but delivered by foreign companies. Also at the event, the federal government clarified that President Bola Tinubu's ongoing fiscal and tax reforms have not introduced any new taxes contrary to widespread speculations. And now we'll go on a quick break, and when we're back, Business 360 continues looking at global economic standings around the world and the markets. Don't go anywhere. So Business 360, and my name is Blyden Kim. Now let's begin a conversation looking at global economic standings around the world and the market as European Central Bank expects to maintain policy rates. The European Central Bank, ECB, is widely expected to keep interest rates unchanged for a second consecutive meeting amid stable inflation, a resilient economy, and ongoing U.S. tariffs. The main refinancing rate is projected to hold at 2.15%, while the deposit facility rate will remain at 2%. Markets will also focus closely on the updated macroeconomic projections and any policy guidelines for the remainder of the year. And now the Netherlands has Dutch trade surplus as smallest in 3 years. The Netherlands' trade surplus narrowed to 8.52 billion euros in July 2025 from 9.31 billion euros in the same month last year. This marks the smallest trade surplus since August 2022, as exports fell 0.5% year-on-year to 67.85 billion euros, dragged down by lower states. The lower sales of non-EU countries, a negative 2.8%, are partially offset by higher sales to EU countries, 1.1%. Among commodities, Exports sharply declined for mineral fuels and lubricants negative 11.7%, while shipment of chemical products fell by 3%. Meanwhile, imports rose 0.8% to 59.33 billion euros, driven by increased purchases from non-EU countries at 1.7%, while import from EU countries declined 0.3%. Notable import increases include arrivals of food and live animals, chemical products, and machinery, as well as transport equipment. From January to July, the Netherlands recorded a trade surplus of 73.07 billion euros, lowered compared with 81.89 billion euros in the corresponding period last year. And now to the financial market, looking at the state of the Naira, as Naira records 3 straight appreciation against the US dollars. The Nigerian Naira on Wednesday recorded 3 straight appreciation against the dollar at the official foreign exchange markets. The Central Bank of Nigeria showed that Naira strengthened further to 1,500 Naira 92 kobo against the dollar on Wednesday, up from 1,506 Naira 9 kobo exchanged on Tuesday. This indicates that the Naira gained significantly by 5 Naira 17 kobo on a day-to-day basis. At the black markets, the Naira remained stable at 1,530 Naira per dollar on Wednesday, the same rate recorded since Monday. This is the 3rd time the Naira has traded impressively this week. From Monday to Wednesday, the Naira has firmed up by 5 Naira 92 kobo on the back of a continued surge in external reserves, which stood at $41.596 billion as of September 9th, 2025. And now let's go to the market, the US dollar against the Naira. Afterwards, we'll look at the Euro USD market, the cryptocurrency market, a US dollar against the Naira. The price level stands at 1,506 Naira and 90 kobo per US dollar. Well, price is in favor of the US dollar this afternoon. The dollar gaining 2.58 points over the Naira, 0.17%. The euro against the Naira, 1,760 Naira to the euro. The euro are gaining just slightly, a 0.03% appreciation, a 0.451 points gain for the euro against the Naira. The pound falling against the Naira by 1.1 points, a negative 0.05% depreciation at 2,034 Naira to the pound. Well, let's look at the Euro USD market then, what the performance of the majors seem to be this afternoon. The Euro USD market price level stands at 1.168 points, meaning 1.168 US dollar equaling 1 euro. The euro falling against the US dollar, negative 0.11%. The pound also dropping negative 0.12% against the US dollar at $1.35 equaling 1 pound. And the Aussie against the dollar at 66 cents equaling 1 Australian dollar. The Australian dollar falling a negative 0.15% against the US dollar. And now to cryptocurrency market this afternoon. In crypto market, the price of Bitcoin stands at 114,105 US dollar, a Bitcoin gaining 121 points after yesterday's gain, still building momentum this afternoon gaining a 0.11%. Ether at 4,436 US dollar, gaining 89 points, 2.05% appreciation. Binance upward by 7.8 points. Cardano also gaining. Solana gaining. Ripple's gaining. But the volatility in the crypto market is quite slow, seeming like the market has reached its peak. And now to the commodities as oil holds 3-day gain. WTI crude oil futures fell to around $63 per barrel today, halting a 3-day gain as signs of weakening U.S. demand slightly outweighed geopolitical risks. Government data showed crude inventories rising by 3.9 million barrels compared with expectations for a draw of about 1 million barrels, pointing to softer consumption. Still, prices remain underpinned by geopolitical tensions. Investors awaited President Trump's remarks on Russia after he questioned Moscow's breach of Polish airspace, raising the prospect of tighter U.S. energy sanctions. He also urged the EU to impose tariff on China and India, major buyers of Russian crude, to pressure Moscow into negotiation. Multiple observation indicates the risk premium was further elevated by Middle East tensions after Israel said it had targeted Hamas leadership in Doha, though no direct threats to oil facilities were reported. And now to the markets, the energy market first, afterwards the metals and agricultural commodities, the energy markets. Energy market begins with the price of U.S. crude, West Texas Intermediate crude, popularly known as WTI crude. Price level standing at $63 per barrel, falling 0.54 points this morning, a negative 0.87% decline. Brent price, which represents Nigeria's price benchmark, is at $66 as 97 cents per barrel, downward by 0.515 points, a negative 0.76%. Natural gas gaining 0.68%. Gasoline price falling negative 1.12%. Heating oil also falling. And now let's look at the metal market. Metal commodities like gold. The metal market. A gold price stands at $3,619 per ounce. Gold falling 20 points, a negative 0.57%. A silver price also falling negative 0.14%. A copper price gaining a $4.54 per pound, dropping but no significant change in that market. A steel price falling by 16 points. The price of steel at 3,026 Chinese yuan per ton. Quickly, let's look at agricultural markets. Agricultural markets indicates the price of soybeans at $1,010 per bushel, upward by 4.66 points, a 0.46% appreciation, and wheat price at $494 per bushel, a downward 0.95 points, a negative 0.19% decline. A lumber price gaining, but no significant change in that market, and palm oil price at 4,453 Malaysian ringgit per ton, upward by 40 points in the market. Still within the context of the market, let's look at the stock market as European market head for higher open ahead of ECB. European equities were set to open higher today as investors awaited the latest European Central Bank policy decision, with a key deposit facility rate expected to remain at 2%. Market attention will center on the bank's updated macroeconomic projections for the Eurozone and a global outlook. Traders also looked ahead to U.S. consumer inflation data for August, following a surprise 0.1% monthly decline in U.S. producer prices released on Wednesday. With no major economic or earning reports scheduled in Europe today, sentiment was guided mainly by central bank development. In pre-market trading, Euro Stoxx 50 futures rose 0.1% and Stoxx 600 futures gained 0.2%. Quickly, let's look at global company stocks this afternoon. The global company stocks. Well, first beginning with Apple. Apple, the stock market price level is $226 per share, well, downward by 7.56 points, a negative 3.23% decline. Tesla gaining 0.24% this morning at $347 per share. Microsoft also gaining 0.39%, but Amazon falling a negative 3.31%. Nvidia are gaining 0.5%, Meta are falling negative 1.79%, and Visa are falling by negative 1.71%. And now to the Nigerian stock market. Let's look at the Nigerian stock market and the values that comes with it. At the end of yesterday's trading session on the Nigerian Stock Exchange, the benchmark Oshe Index climbed 569.25 basis points to close at 140,365 points. The current market capitalization of the Nigerian Stock Exchange is 88.8 trillion naira. Let's look at the top gainers and the bottom losers. Chalam's led the gainers with 10% share price appreciation, closing at 12 naira 10 kobo per share. On the losing side, May and Baker Nigeria came at last with an end of day price appreciation of 9.97% at 16 naira 25 kobo per share. FCMB Group recorded the highest volume of 288 million traded shares. And quickly as we close, let's look at the African stock market and the performances today. African stock market. African stock market indicates the Nigerian stock market NSE all share price level at 140,536 points, where the Nigerian stock market has gained 171 basis points, a 0.12% appreciation. A South African stock SA all falling by 101 basis points this morning. Another South African stock SA 40 falling by 122 basis points. Egyptian stocks EGX 30 gaining 217 basis points, 0.63% appreciation, and stocks in Central African Republic and Nairobi also gaining. Well, it's the outlook that comes with the world of business and the market this morning. We draw the curtain in today's edition of Business 360. Thank you for being a part of it. My name is Vlad Nukim, and thank you for watching.